Have you ever felt uneasy being alone? In a world that constantly celebrates social interactions, relationships, and group dynamics, solitude is often misunderstood as loneliness, rejection, or even failure. Yet, in the wisdom of Buddhism, being alone is not a punishment. It is an opportunity, a gift, a path to profound self-discovery. Throughout history, some of the greatest minds, spiritual seekers, and enlightened beings have embraced solitude. The Buddha himself left the distractions of society to meditate under the Bodhi tree, seeking enlightenment in absolute stillness. The ability to find joy in your own company is not just an ideal. It is a skill, a practice, and a form of inner freedom. When we learn to enjoy our own presence, we unlock a deeper connection to ourselves, a wellspring of peace that is not dependent on external validation. Instead of fearing solitude, what if we saw it as a powerful training ground for self-awareness, confidence, and inner happiness? In this video, we will explore 7 powerful Buddhist lessons that will teach you how to not only be happy alone, but to thrive in solitude. These lessons will help you shift your perspective, develop emotional independence, and discover the incredible richness that comes from turning inward. Let's be real. Most people don't like being alone. There's this deep-rooted idea in society that if you're spending too much time by yourself, something must be wrong. People might think you're lonely, sad, or even a little weird. And let's be honest, at some point, you've probably felt the same way. Maybe you've looked around and thought, why am I alone while everyone else seems to be surrounded by friends, family, or a partner? But here's the truth. Solitude is not loneliness. Let me say that again. Solitude is not loneliness. It's not a punishment. And it's definitely not a sign that something is wrong with you. In fact, if you learn how to embrace it, solitude can be one of the most powerful tools for self-growth, clarity, and inner peace. The Buddha's Journey. Why he chose solitude. Think about the story of the Buddha. Before he became the Buddha, he was Prince Siddhartha, living in a luxurious palace surrounded by wealth, servants, and every comfort imaginable. But guess what? Even with all of that, he still felt empty. He knew there was something missing. So, what did he do? He left everything behind: his family, his riches, his royal title, and went into the wilderness alone. Not because he was running away from life, but because he knew that true wisdom and happiness don't come from external things. They come from within. For 6 years, he lived as an ascetic, practicing meditation and deep self-reflection. He spent countless hours in solitude, facing his own mind without distractions. And that's when he discovered the truth. Happiness isn't about what you have or who you surround yourself with. It's about the relationship you have with yourself. So, if the Buddha himself embraced solitude to find enlightenment, why do we fear it so much? Why we fear being alone? And why it's all a lie. Most people don't actually fear being alone. What they fear is what happens when they're alone. That uncomfortable silence. The thoughts that start creeping in. The feeling of not knowing what to do with yourself. We've been conditioned to believe that happiness comes from external validation, that we need people, attention, and constant activity to feel whole. From childhood, we're told things like, you need to be social to be successful. If you're not in a relationship, something's wrong. Being alone means you have no friends. All of these ideas make solitude feel like a bad thing, something to be avoided. But that's simply not true. Buddhism teaches us that the mind is like a restless monkey, constantly jumping from one thing to another, always looking for something to keep it entertained. When we're alone, we suddenly become aware of this monkey mind, and that can feel overwhelming. So, what do? We reach for distractions. Our phones, Netflix, social media, anything to avoid sitting with ourselves. But here's the catch. Until you learn to sit with yourself in peace, you'll always be running. You'll always be looking for something outside of you to make you feel okay inside. And that's why so many people feel lost, even in a crowd, even in a relationship. How to flip the script. Seeing solitude as a gift. So, how do we change our mindset? How do we stop seeing solitude as something to fear and start seeing it as something to cherish? Here are some Buddhist-inspired shifts that can help. 1. Shift your perspective. From lack to opportunity. Instead of seeing solitude as, I have no one, start seeing it as, I have space to grow. When you're alone, you have time. Time to think, time to reflect, time to understand yourself on a deeper level. This is a rare gift in today's fast-paced world. Instead of using alone time to feel bad about yourself, use it to explore your mind. Ask yourself, what do I truly enjoy? What makes me happy without external validation? Who am I when no one else is watching? These questions will lead you to self-discovery, and self-discovery leads to confidence. 2. Find strength in your own presence. There's a powerful Zen saying, a person who is at peace in solitude is truly free. Think about that for a second. If you can be alone and still feel fulfilled, you become unstoppable. No longer do you need approval from others to feel worthy. No longer do you fear rejection, because your happiness isn't dependent on external things. One practical way to build this strength: meditation. When you meditate, you train your mind to sit in stillness without needing distractions. You start to see that your thoughts are just passing clouds. They don't control you. Try this. Set a timer for 5 minutes. That's it, just 5 minutes. Sit in a quiet place. Close your eyes and focus on your breath. Let thoughts come and go without attaching to them. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. You might want to grab your phone or do something productive. But stick with it. Over time, you'll find that being alone stops feeling empty and starts feeling peaceful. 3. Embrace the power of choice. Solitude is only painful when it feels forced. But when you choose to be alone, when you see it as something valuable, it becomes empowering. Think of it like this. Solitude is not about isolation. It's about self-connection. Use your alone time to read books that expand your mind, journal about your thoughts and experiences, go on solo adventures, take yourself out for coffee, go for a walk in nature, visit a museum. Make your alone time meaningful, and suddenly, it won't feel like loneliness. It will feel like freedom. The world's greatest thinkers, artists, and spiritual leaders all had one thing in common. They spent time alone. The Buddha meditated under the Bodhi tree in solitude. Leonardo da Vinci spent hours alone, sketching and innovating. Albert Einstein often walked alone, deep in thought, discovering the mysteries of the universe. These individuals didn't fear solitude. They embraced it. And because of that, they tapped into their greatest strengths. So the next time you find yourself alone, don't see it as a problem. See it as an opportunity to grow, to understand yourself, to become the kind of person who doesn't need external validation to feel happy. Because at the end of the day, If you can learn to enjoy your own company, you'll never feel lonely again. Your next step. Here's a challenge for you. For the next 7 days, spend at least 10 minutes a day in intentional solitude. No distractions, no phone, just you and your thoughts. Start small. Observe how you feel. Journal about it. And, most importantly, embrace it. Because the more comfortable you become in solitude, the more powerful, independent, and at peace you'll be. All right, let's be honest. When most people think of being alone, they imagine sitting in an empty room, staring at the walls, doing nothing. And yeah, if that's what solitude is for you, it's going to feel pretty miserable. But here's the thing. Being alone doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to feel empty. It doesn't have to be something you suffer through. In fact, it can be one of the most exciting and fulfilling experiences in your life. The secret? You have to create a personal universe that excites you. Let's break that down. Why do people fear being alone? Most people avoid being alone because they associate it with boredom, emptiness, or missing out. They think, if I'm alone, I must be lonely. If I'm alone, my life must be boring. If I'm alone, I must be doing something wrong. But that's just not true. The real reason solitude feels uncomfortable for some people isn't because they're alone. It's because they haven't built a life that excites them. Think about it. If your personal universe is empty, if you don't have hobbies, passions, or things that make you feel alive, of course, solitude is going to feel like a punishment. You're not escaping loneliness. You're escaping the lack of purpose. But what if your alone time was filled with things you genuinely loved? What if you saw solitude as a time to explore, create, and grow, rather than something to escape? That's where Buddhism comes in. The Buddha's time in solitude, the ultimate example. The Buddha didn't just sit in a cave and do nothing. His solitude was filled with deep exploration, meditation, self-reflection, and learning about the nature of the mind. His alone time wasn't empty. It was full of insight, full of discovery, full of growth. And that's exactly what you need to do. Instead of seeing solitude as a void, see it as a blank canvas, a space where you can build a world that is rich, meaningful, and uniquely yours. How to build your own personal universe. All right, let's get practical. How do you actually do this? How do you make solitude something you look forward to instead of something you avoid? Here are 3 powerful steps. Step 1. Discover what genuinely excites you. Here's a question for you. When was the last time you did something purely because it made you happy? Not because someone told you to, not because it was productive, but simply because it lit you up inside. If you don't know, that's your first mission. Find what excites you. Buddhism teaches that curiosity is a path to self-discovery. The more you explore, the more you understand who you are. Try asking yourself, what am I naturally drawn to? What makes me feel alive? What activities make me forget about time? And don't overthink it. It could be writing, painting, playing music, learning a new skill, cooking, hiking, meditating, gardening, journaling. Whatever sparks something in you. Try this. Make a list of 10 things you're curious about. Then, commit to trying at least one new thing per week. Step 2. Create rituals that make your alone time special. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with being alone is that they don't have intentionality in their alone time. It just happens by accident, like a night where plans got canceled and suddenly you're stuck at home, unsure of what to do. But here's the trick. When you make solitude intentional, it stops feeling empty. Think about it. Monks don't just sit around doing nothing all day. They have rituals that turn their alone time into something meaningful. You can do the same. Start creating small, enjoyable rituals that make your alone time feel sacred. For example, morning ritual. Brew a cup of tea, read a book, and journal your thoughts. Evening ritual. Take a slow walk, listen to calming music, and meditate. Weekly ritual. Dedicate an afternoon to your creative projects, writing, drawing, or learning something new. When you create these small moments of joy, solitude stops feeling like a gap in your life. It becomes something you look forward to. Step 3. Make solitude an adventure, not a chore. One of the biggest mindset shifts you can make is to treat your alone time like an adventure. Most people only go on adventures when they have company. They wait for friends to travel, to go to restaurants, to explore new places. But why wait? Why not make your alone time just as exciting as being with others? Challenge yourself to go on a solo adventure, visit a museum, take a day trip, or go to a cafe with a book. Try something new each week, a new food, a new skill, a new hobby. Explore your creativity. Write, paint, or express yourself in a way that excites you. When you start seeing solitude as a time to grow and explore, it stops feeling lonely. It starts feeling liberating. Let's talk about Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen master. He lived a quiet life, mostly in solitude, yet he radiated peace, joy, and wisdom. What was his secret? Mindfulness. He didn't just spend time alone. He made every moment of solitude rich with meaning. Whether he was drinking tea, walking in nature, or writing, he did it with full awareness and presence. One of his teachings was simple but powerful. Happiness is not found in another person. It is found in the way you experience the present moment. So, what if you started seeing every small moment, drinking tea, cooking a meal, reading a book, as something sacred? When you do this, solitude stops feeling like a waiting room before your next social interaction. It becomes a complete experience in itself. Here's the truth. You don't need someone else to make your life exciting. You don't need a relationship, a big group of friends, or constant plans to feel fulfilled. What you need is to build a world that excites you. A world where you wake up and look forward to your day. Not because of what's happening outside, but because of what's happening inside you. Solitude is not about what you lack. It's about what you create. So, start creating. And remember, when you build a personal universe that excites you, you'll never fear being alone again. Your next step. Here's a simple challenge for you. For the next 7 days, spend 30 minutes a day doing something that brings you joy. Just for yourself. No distractions, no external validation. Just you, your passion, and the moment. And after a week, see how you feel. I guarantee you'll start looking at solitude in a whole new way. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you had a real, honest conversation with yourself? I don't mean overthinking, stressing out, or criticizing yourself. I mean a genuine conversation. The kind you'd have with a close friend late at night, talking about life, dreams, and the things that truly matter. Most of us spend our lives talking to other people, our friends, our family, even strangers on the internet. But when do we ever sit down and talk to ourselves? Buddhism teaches that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with your own mind. If you don't know yourself, your values, your fears, your dreams, how can you expect to find true happiness? This is why mastering deep self-conversation is a game changer. It helps you understand yourself, make better decisions, and find peace within. So, let's dive into why this matters and how you can start doing it today. Why most people avoid talking to themselves. Let's be real. Most people don't actually like spending time alone with their thoughts. Why? Because when there's no one else around, all the emotions we've been ignoring suddenly come rushing in. Think about it. What do most of us do when we're alone? We turn on the TV. We scroll through social media. We distract ourselves with music, podcasts, or phone calls. Anything to avoid silence. But why is silence so uncomfortable? Because silence forces us to confront ourselves. It forces us to look at our fears, insecurities, regrets, and emotions that we've been avoiding. And that's scary. But here's the thing. You can't heal what you refuse to face. You can't grow if you're constantly running from your own mind. This is why learning to talk to yourself, really talk to yourself, is one of the most powerful things you can do. The Buddha's teachings, the power of self-reflection. The Buddha once said, "Your worst enemy cannot harm you as much as your own thoughts, unguarded." Think about that for a second. Most of our suffering doesn't come from external events. It comes from the way we think about them. We replay mistakes in our heads over and over again. We criticize ourselves for not being good enough. We create stories about what other people think of us, even though we don't really know. This is why self-reflection is essential. The Buddha spent years in deep meditation. Not because he was trying to escape the world, but because he wanted to understand the mind. He realized that most of our suffering comes from our own thoughts. But when you start observing your thoughts, when you start questioning them instead of just believing them, you gain power over them. And that's where deep self-conversation comes in. How to have meaningful conversations with yourself. All right, let's get practical. How do you actually start having deep, meaningful conversations with yourself? Here are 3 powerful techniques. Step 1. Ask yourself the right questions. Most of us spend our alone time overthinking the wrong things. Why did I embarrass myself in that conversation? What if things don't work out? What do people think of me? But instead of asking questions that create stress, what if you asked questions that led to self-discovery? Try these. What truly makes me happy? What kind of life do I want to create for myself? What do I value most? What am I afraid of, and why? What is one thing I can do today to grow as a person? These kinds of questions force you to go beyond the surface. They help you understand what really matters to you. Try this. Take 5 minutes every day to ask yourself one meaningful question and write down your answer. You'll be surprised by how much insight you gain. Step 2. Journal like you're talking to a friend. Journaling is one of the best ways to talk to yourself clearly. But here's the trick. Don't just write a boring diary entry about what you did today. Instead, write like you're talking to a best friend. Be honest. Be raw. Let your thoughts flow. For example, instead of writing, "Today was okay. I went to work and came home," try writing, "Today I felt a little lost. I'm not sure if I'm on the right path, and that scares me. But I also know that growth comes from uncertainty. So instead of panicking, I'm going to take a deep breath and trust that everything is unfolding as it should." See the difference? When you start journaling like you're talking to someone who truly understands you, you'll find that you start understanding yourself better too. Step 3. Meditate to listen to your inner voice. Most of us have a constant mental dialogue running in the background, but have you ever stopped to listen to it? Meditation helps you do just that. When you meditate, you sit in silence and observe your thoughts. You start to notice patterns, what your mind tends to focus on, what fears keep coming up, what thoughts make you feel anxious. And here's the magic. The more you observe your thoughts, the less power they have over you. Try this. Find a quiet place. Sit comfortably and close your eyes. Take deep breaths and just listen to your thoughts without reacting. At first, your mind will be all over the place, but over time, you'll start to recognize which thoughts are useful and which ones are just noise. And once you can do that, you gain control over your mind instead of letting it control you. The Dalai Lama is known for his incredible sense of peace and wisdom. But did you know that one of his secrets is how he talks to himself? He once said, "When I talk to myself, I am kind. I do not scold myself. I treat myself as I would treat a friend." Think about that. Most of us are our own worst critics. We talk to ourselves in ways we'd never talk to someone we love. We call ourselves stupid when we make mistakes. We beat ourselves up for things we can't change. We replay our failures over and over again. But what if, instead, you talked to yourself like you'd talk to your best friend? What if, instead of saying, "I can't believe I messed that up. I'm such an idiot," you said, "I made a mistake, but that's okay. I'm human and I'm learning. I'll do better next time." See the difference? When you start talking to yourself with compassion instead of criticism, you build confidence, resilience, and inner peace. Final thought. You are your own best guide. At the end of the day, no one knows you better than you do. No one else is living inside your mind. No one else truly understands your experiences the way you do. That's why learning to talk to yourself in a meaningful way is so important. It helps you. Gain clarity about your life. Make decisions based on your own truth. Build inner peace and confidence. Because the truth is, the answers you're looking for, they're already inside you. You just have to listen. Your next step. Here's a simple challenge. For the next 7 days, set aside 5 minutes each day to have a real conversation with yourself. Ask yourself a deep question. Write about it in a journal, or just sit in silence and listen to your thoughts. See what comes up. See how it changes the way you understand yourself. Because once you master deep self-conversation, you'll never feel lost again. All right, let's talk about something that nobody wants to admit. We are addicted to distractions. Think about it. When was the last time you sat alone, in silence, with absolutely nothing to entertain you? No phone, no TV, no background music. Just you and your thoughts. Sounds uncomfortable, right? In today's world, we're constantly surrounded by entertainment. Social media, Netflix, YouTube, video games, endless scrolling. And while these things aren't necessarily bad, they've created a dangerous habit. We no longer know how to be alone without distractions. But here's the thing. Happiness doesn't come from constant stimulation. It comes from learning to be present without needing external entertainment to feel okay. Buddhism teaches that the mind is like a restless monkey, always jumping from one distraction to another. And if we don't learn how to control it, we become dependent on external noise to avoid facing our inner world. So today, let's break free from the entertainment trap and learn how to truly enjoy solitude without constantly seeking distractions. Why we rely on entertainment and why it's a problem. Let's be honest. Entertainment is everywhere. Got 5 minutes? Pull out your phone. Feeling bored? Watch a show. Need background noise? Play music or a podcast. It's so easy to fill every moment with stimulation that we've forgotten how to just be. Now, here's where the problem starts. The more we rely on entertainment, the less we develop the ability to sit with ourselves. We condition our minds to need constant input, always refreshing, always consuming, always distracted. And over time, this leads to 3 big issues. 1. We lose our ability to be present. When was the last time you ate a meal without checking your phone? Or went on a walk without listening to music or a podcast? Most of us can't even do simple activities without distractions anymore. Our minds are trained to seek entertainment at every moment, making it nearly impossible to focus on the present. And that's a problem. Because if you can't be present, you can't fully experience life. 2. We avoid our own thoughts. Here's a hard truth. Most of us don't want to sit in silence because we're afraid of what will come up. That guilt from the past, that anxiety about the future, that fear of not being good enough. Entertainment keeps us distracted from these thoughts, but it doesn't solve them. It just pushes them aside, making them stronger over time. Buddhism teaches that true peace comes from facing your thoughts, not running from them. The more we practice being alone without distractions, the more we learn to accept and understand our minds. 3. We become addicted to instant gratification. Entertainment is designed to be fast, engaging, and addictive. Think about how social media works. Quick videos, endless scrolling, instant notifications. Every time you check your phone, your brain releases a tiny hit of dopamine, the feel-good chemical that keeps you coming back for more. Over time, this trains your mind to seek constant stimulation, making it harder to enjoy slow, quiet, or deep experiences. And that's a problem because real happiness doesn't come from quick dopamine hits. It comes from deep, meaningful experiences. How Buddhism teaches us to escape the entertainment trap. The good news? You can break free. You don't have to be a slave to constant distractions. Buddhism teaches us how to train the mind so that we can find happiness from within, rather than constantly looking for external stimulation. Here's how you can start. Step 1. Start small. Practice being alone without distractions. One of the simplest but most powerful things you can do is set aside time each day to just be no phone, no TV, no distractions, just you and the present moment. Try this. Start with 5 minutes a day. Sit in silence, drink tea, or just stare out the window. Go on a walk without your phone. Just observe the world around you. Eat a meal in silence. No TV, no scrolling, just focus on the food. At first, your mind will resist this. You'll feel restless. You'll want to grab your phone, but stick with it. Over time, your brain will adjust, and you'll start to feel more at peace in the present moment. Step 2. Replace mindless entertainment with mindful activities. Instead of just consuming entertainment, try doing something that actually nourishes your mind and soul. Instead of scrolling through social media, try journaling about your thoughts. Instead of binge-watching TV, try reading a book that expands your mind. Instead of playing video games for hours, try meditating and observing your thoughts. The goal here isn't to eliminate entertainment completely. It's to be more intentional about how you spend your time. Buddhism teaches that true joy comes from mindful living, fully engaging in whatever you're doing, rather than just passively consuming content. Step 3. Meditate to train your mind. Meditation is one of the best ways to rewire your brain to stop craving constant stimulation. When you meditate, you sit in silence and simply observe your thoughts without reacting to them. At first, your mind will be chaotic. Thoughts will come and go, and you'll feel the urge to check your phone, do something productive, or find entertainment. But over time, something amazing happens. You start to feel comfortable in stillness. You start to see that you don't need distractions to feel okay. You can just be. A real-life example: the Zen monks who choose simplicity over distraction. Ever wonder why Buddhist monks seem so calm and peaceful? It's not because they have some magical ability to avoid stress. It's because they've trained their minds to be at peace without needing constant stimulation. Monks don't spend their days watching Netflix or scrolling through social media. They live simply, doing things like meditating in silence, drinking tea mindfully, walking without distractions. And because of this, they don't feel bored when they're alone. They feel deeply content. You don't have to be a monk to experience this. You just have to retrain your brain to enjoy simplicity. At the end of the day, entertainment is not the enemy. The problem isn't watching TV, scrolling on social media, or playing video games. The problem is using entertainment as a crutch to avoid being alone with yourself. When you learn to break free from the entertainment trap, you gain something far more valuable: mental clarity, inner peace, the ability to enjoy your own company without distractions. Because true happiness isn't found in endless distractions. It's found in the quiet confidence of a mind that no longer needs them. Your next step. A simple challenge for the next 7 days. Try this. Spend 30 minutes a day without any entertainment. No phone, no TV, no background noise. Observe how you feel. Do you feel anxious? Bored? Restless? Stick with it. Over time, you'll start to feel more present, more peaceful, and less dependent on distractions. And when that happens, you'll start enjoying solitude in a way you never thought possible. All right, let's be honest. Most of us have been taught that being alone is a weakness. Think about it. Society constantly tells us that happiness comes from being surrounded by people, having a big group of friends, a romantic partner, a thriving social life. And while human connection is important, there's something that very few people ever talk about: the power of being alone and thriving in solitude. Buddhism teaches that true confidence doesn't come from how many people surround you. It comes from within. This is called silent strength, the kind of confidence that doesn't need attention, validation, or approval from others. It's the deep, unshakable knowing that you are enough, exactly as you are. And let me tell you, once you develop this kind of confidence, your entire life changes. So, let's break this down. What exactly is silent strength? Why is it so rare, and how can you develop it? What is silent strength? Silent strength is the ability to be alone without feeling lonely. It's the quiet confidence of a person who doesn't need external validation to feel whole. It's inner peace, self-trust, and emotional independence. People who have silent strength are comfortable being alone. Don't seek approval from others. Trust themselves to make decisions. Don't fear rejection or abandonment. Feel at peace no matter who is or isn't in their life. Sounds powerful, right? But here's the catch. Most people don't have it, because we've been conditioned to think that our worth comes from outside of us, from our relationships, our achievements, our social status. Buddhism flips this idea on its head. It teaches that true confidence is self-sourced. It comes from within, not from other people. And once you develop this, you become unstoppable. Why most people struggle with being alone? Let's be real. Most people hate being alone. Why? Because when you're alone, you're left with just yourself. No distractions, no social validation. Just you. your thoughts, and your emotions. And if you haven't built a strong relationship with yourself, this can feel terrifying. This is why so many people jump from one relationship to another, not because they love deeply, but because they fear solitude. It's why people stay in toxic friendships, bad relationships, or situations that don't serve them, because being with someone, even if it's not healthy, feels safer than being alone. But here's the truth. If you don't learn to be happy alone, you will never be truly free. Freedom comes when you realize that you don't need anyone else to complete you, because you are already whole. How to develop silent strength, even if you've always feared being alone. Alright, so how do you actually develop this deep, unshakable confidence? Here are 3 powerful steps to get you there. Step 1. Spend time in solitude, on purpose. If you want to be comfortable alone, you have to actually spend time alone. Not just accidentally, intentionally, but here's the key. Don't just sit in silence doing nothing. Use this time to get to know yourself. Try this. Go for a solo walk without distractions. Observe your thoughts. Take yourself out on a solo date. Go to a cafe, the movies, or a museum alone. Practice mindful solitude. Sit in silence and just exist. No phone, no TV, just you. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, but the more you do it, the stronger you become. Buddhist monks spend years in solitude, and they emerge with deep wisdom and unshakable peace. You don't have to become a monk, but you can start by learning to enjoy your own company. Step 2. Build self-trust, so you stop relying on others for validation. Most people don't trust themselves. Think about it. When you're faced with a big decision, do you overthink endlessly? Ask 5 different people for advice? Second-guess yourself? This happens because we've been conditioned to doubt our own wisdom. But here's what Buddhism teaches. The answers you seek are already inside you. You just have to learn to listen. How do you do this? By making small decisions on your own. The moment you stop living for approval and start living for yourself, you become truly free. Try this. Every time you catch yourself seeking approval, pause and ask, do I actually need their validation, or do I already know what's right for me? Start doing small things that you love, without worrying what others think. Remind yourself that external opinions do not define your worth. The less you rely on validation, the stronger and more independent you become. A real-life example, Miyamoto Musashi's unbreakable strength. Let me tell you about Miyamoto Musashi, one of the greatest samurai warriors in history. Musashi was a master swordsman, philosopher, and strategist. But do you know what made him truly powerful? He was completely self-sufficient. He spent years in solitude, training both his body and mind. He didn't chase approval, didn't fear being alone, and didn't seek validation from others. He had silent strength. One of his most famous quotes is, "Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world." In other words, don't be consumed by your ego. Detach from external opinions, build inner strength, and trust yourself. And when you do that, you become unstoppable. Final thought. Confidence is built in solitude. Most people think confidence comes from being popular, attractive, or successful. But real confidence comes from being at peace with yourself, without needing external validation. Silent strength is about knowing that. Checkmark. You are enough. You don't need anyone else to complete you. You trust yourself no matter what. And once you develop this, you'll never fear being alone again, because you'll realize that solitude isn't loneliness. it's freedom. Solitude is not loneliness, it is self-connection. When you embrace solitude, you unlock a deeper understanding of yourself, cultivate inner peace, and discover that true happiness is found within. If you found these lessons valuable, consider subscribing for more wisdom on living a peaceful and fulfilled life. Until next time, embrace your solitude and find joy within yourself.